She was the most feared actor in Hollywood. The star was known as the feared Dunaway. Now that she is 84 years old, Faye Dunaway finally talks about what really happened on those dangerous movie sets. She hid her bipolar disorder for years, and the dark truth about why she really threw that cup of urine in Roman Polanski's face. The event that made her lose it. She tore her hair. The sexiest and most dangerous star in Hollywood is finally ready to open up. Dorothy Faye Dunaway was born on January 14, 1941, in Bascom, Florida. There she became Faye Dunaway. Her dad worked as an officer in the U.S. Army. Her mom took care of the house. They got married young in 1939, but went their separate ways before Faye was 14. The Ulster Scots, the Irish, and the Germans were all in her family tree. Because her father was in the service, she moved around a lot. They lived in Texas, Utah, and even Mannheim, Germany for a short time. That kind of life might have been hard for some kids, but Faye didn't see it that way. As we moved from place to place, we met new people and learned new ways to live. She took it all in. She looked at more than just the world around her. She threw herself into being artistic, and she learned how to play the piano, dance, and tap dance, and singing. She kept her mind on school, even though she had to move around a lot. The year she finished from Leon High School in Tallahassee, Florida, was 1958. She first thought about becoming a teacher. That's why she chose to go to the University of Florida. She knew where her true love lay when she felt something pulling her towards the stage. She changed schools and now goes to Boston University's School of Fine and Applied Arts. She had achieved a Bachelor of Fine Arts by 1962. She changed in ways she didn't expect while she was there. She worked with people who took acting as seriously as she did at Harvard's Loeb Drama Center during the summers. In one performance of The Crucible, Arthur Miller himself was in the crowd. He left feeling good. The next stop was New York, at the American National Theater and Academy. She worked out and pushed herself more than ever. Then comes a choice that changes everything. A Fulbright scholarship let her go to school at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts. At the same time, she was offered a part in A Man for All Seasons by Antier. She could either keep going to school or go right into the working world. The stage was her choice. That choice made her job possible. In A Man for All Seasons, her first show on Broadway, she played Margaret Moore. But Hogan's Goat was her real big break. It was put on 607 times, which made her a star in New York theater. More importantly, it put her in touch with writer William Alfred. She looked up to him and learned a lot from him about playing. She wrote about him as one of the most important people in her life in her book, Looking for Gatsby. It was seen in Hollywood. The Happening, 1967. Her first movie wasn't a big hit, but it got her started. In the same year, she was in Hurry, Sundown by Otto Preminger. The movie had some problems, but her acting made it stand out. Before Bonnie and Clyde, Faye Dunaway was known for other films. She changed a lot when she played Bonnie Parker. When it came out in 1967, the movie was risky, violent, and unlike anything Hollywood had ever made before. Arthur Penn directed it, and it was about two criminals who became famous. At first, critics were split. A few people thought it was too harsh. Some people thought it was a beauty. People, on the other hand, loved it. The movie made waves in culture and changed the way films are made in the future. Something special was brought to Bonnie Parker by Dunaway. She wasn't just pretending to be a bad guy. Bonnie became eager, antsy, and open to being hurt all at the same time. Warren Beatty, who played Clyde Barrow, and she had a great relationship. Who is this? My name is Miss Bonnie Parker, and this is Mr. Clyde Barrow. We take money from banks. People cheered for two crooks even as they did more and more dangerous things. But Dunaway wasn't the first person who was considered for the part. Before Penn made her the lead, Jane Fonda and Natalie Wood were considered. She lost 30 pounds and totally changed how she looked to get ready. The movie was up for 9 Academy Awards and won 2. The bloody ambush scene at the end, where Bonnie and Clyde are shot and killed, is one of the most famous ends in movie history. The movie Bonnie and Clyde was later kept safe in the National Film Registry. It did better than just be a hit. It was a big moment in Hollywood. Dunaway became famous after playing Bonnie Parker. In The Thomas Crown Affair, Dunaway played Vicki Anderson, a detective who is smart and works alone. She wasn't a criminal this time. She was the one after one. The movie came out in 1968 and starred her with Steve McQueen. It was directed by Norman Jewison. They had a lot of chemistry. A slow and quiet game of chess became one of the most famous scenes in movie history. There were no words said. Still, it was impossible to miss the steam between them. McQueen wasn't sure if he wanted to work with Dunaway. Before Bonnie and Clyde, Warren Beatty had the same thought. After seeing her work, both stars changed their minds. She turned Vicki Anderson into more than just a girl she liked. The man she was after was just as smart as she was. The style of the movie was well known. Dunaway changed her clothes more than 29 times. Each one is more beautiful than the last. To make the heist more interesting, Joyson came up with new ways to use split screen. Vicky's Ferrari 275 GP 4 Art Spider, which is one of only 10 ever made, became an icon. There were 3 Oscar nominees for The Thomas Crown Affair. One was for Best Original Song as well. It proved that Dunaway could shine in any part. Little Big Man, her next big movie, was a change for her. The movie came out in 1970 and was directed by Arthur Penn. Dustin Hoffman played Jack Crabbe, a man who was stuck between 2 worlds. Madame Pendrai was played by Dunaway. She was the wife of a preacher and seemed proper and religious, but she had a more complicated side. Her time on screen was short, but she left an impression that will last. The movie Little Big Man was a revisionist Western with both funny and serious subjects. At the time, it was unusual for Hollywood to show Native Americans in a positive way. The movie did well with both critics and audiences. 3 BAFTAs were given to it, and it was later added to the National Film Registry. Dunaway had a small part, but it stood out. She had a way of making people remember even short visits. After that came Chinatown. Her fame grew after Bonnie and Clyde, but it really took off after Chinatown. The film was a neo-noir classic. It came out in 1974 and was directed by Roman Polanski. It showed how a private detective, Jack Nicholson, found corruption in Los Angeles in the 1930s. Evelyn Mulwray was played by Dunaway. She was a woman with secrets that changed everything. She looked a lot like a typical femme fatale at first. The story of her got worse as the movie went on. She was keeping something very bad from you. People were shocked when the truth came out. Dunaway gave a disturbing performance. She made Evelyn both strange and very real. Polanski was very picky, and he pushed Dunaway to her limits. They fought a lot, but the show they put on together was one of her best ever. Chinatown was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and one of them was for Best Original Screenplay. For the second time, Dunaway was nominated for Best Actress. Evelyn Mulwray is still one of the most studied figures in movie history, even after all these years. The most powerful performance Dunaway ever gave was in Network. In this movie, she played Diana Christensen, a cruel TV executive. She didn't care about morals or ethics. She cared about how she rated. Network, which came out in 1976 and was directed by Sidney Lumet, was a harsh attack on the sensationalism of the media. It showed a world where news on TV was like fun, and people would do anything to have a crowd. Diana Christensen was the most important person. She was driven and ready to do anything to get ahead. Evelyn Mulwray was changed by disaster, but Diana didn't have any illusions. She was cold, smart, and in charge of everything. Dunaway gave a mesmerizing show. Diana was both interesting and scary because of her. The movie was a huge hit and was nominated for 10 Academy Awards. It got 4 awards, and Dunaway won Best Actress. Also, I want to say a big thank you to Susan Germain and Lee Harmon, our friends in the back room. Thanks. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Faye put on performance after performance that blew everyone away. Bonnie and Clyde made her well known. Chinatown showed that she was one of the best actors of her time. She won an Oscar for Network, but her career took a turn no one saw coming after she got to the top. It all began in 1981 with Mommy Dearest. There were plans for the movie to be a serious thriller based on Christina Crawford's autobiography about her adoptive mother, Joan Crawford. The book made Crawford look like a mean, controlling fanatic who scared the people in her home. Dunaway threw herself into the part and changed everything about herself. She seemed and looked a lot like Joan Crawford. Critics at first said nice things about her act, like how brave and fearless it was. But something went wrong. The movie was already very intense, but Dunaway's acting made it even stronger. It was the worst possible time for all of them. Then something happened that made everything different. The scene of the wire hanger. When Dunaway plays Joan Crawford, she goes into her daughter's room and screams in anger when she sees wire hangers in the closet. This is one of the most famous scenes in movie history. The movie was supposed to be scary, but people didn't behave the way the creators thought they would. They laughed. The movie went from being a dark thriller to something else after that one scene. It lost its shock value and turned corny and over the top. When Paramount Pictures found out what had happened, they quickly changed the name of the movie. The play was no longer just a play. It was the start of a cult movie. The movie made $25 million, even though it only cost $10 million to make. It was ruined by reviewers, though. It won 5 Golden Raspberry Awards, and Dunaway got 1 for being the worst actress. It was terrible for Dunaway. Many people thought the movie would be a hit, but instead they made fun of it. In the end, she said that the part hurt her a lot. She said that the director, Frank Perry, wasn't there to help her and let the movie get out of hand. Movie stars quickly turned against her. She wasn't just the actor from Network who won an Oscar anymore. She looked like Mommy Dearest, but that wasn't the only thing that was going wrong with her job. In the early 1980s, Hollywood often didn't hire women after they turned 40. Studios were looking for new voices, and Dunaway's old-school glitz was no longer in style. The parts she used to play were going to younger stars like Sally Field and Deborah Winger. On top of that, Dunaway was known for being tough to work with. The word got around that she had a short fuse and high standards. People in charge of films and TV shows stopped wanting to work with her. Dunaway later said that she did mess up during this time. She wrote in her autobiography, Looking for Gatsby, about parts that could have helped her career, but she turned down. It was fear that led to some choices. Others just had bad judgment. The big parts stopped coming one by one. By the mid-1980s, she was only in smaller films that didn't have as much of an effect. This is when Sunset Boulevard came. In 1994, Dunaway was going to play Norma Desmond in Andrew Lloyd Webber's show in Los Angeles. It was a huge chance to make a comeback. Norma Desmond used to be a movie star who was desperate to get back to being famous, a figure that Dunaway could connect with. He fired her, though, just a few weeks before she was set to go on stage. He said that her voice wasn't strong enough for the part. The damage was terrible. Not only was Dunaway fired, but the whole production in Los Angeles was also stopped. She was very angry. Lloyd Webber was sued for $6 million because she said he was using her as an excuse for the show's money problems. She said he had told her she was good at singing during auditions, but then changed his mind. The case was settled out of court for an amount that was not made public, but the damage had already been done. People thought Dunaway was hard to work with even more after the Sunset Boulevard scandal. It also made people wonder why she was chosen to be in the show in the first place. No one knew she could sing. Some people also thought the part was doomed from the start. At the same time, Faye Dunaway's personal life was just as exciting as the film she was in. When her fame was at its peak, she married Peter Wolf, who was the lead singer of the J. Giles Band. They fell in love quickly. After going out together for 2 years, they got engaged and married the next day in a small wedding in Beverly Hills. She was already a Hollywood star thanks to her roles in Chinatown and Bonnie and Clyde. That is, for them and me to be able to see the face and understand what is going on in front of us is pretty strange. Wolf couldn't keep up with all the duties of touring and recording. They had a lot of respect for each other. She once said that they were like 2 warriors standing next to each other, both eager and driven, both determined to do well. But success can also make people less close to each other. Wolf was always on the go, but Dunaway kept getting better in Hollywood and won an Oscar for Network. It was hard to go that far. They were no longer married by 1978. The following year, they finally got a divorce. They were still polite to each other after they broke up. Love Stinks was one of Wolf's band's biggest hits, but he later said it wasn't about their split. A lot of fans are still not sure if it was or not. Dunaway got married to British photographer Terry O'Neill in 1983. They met at a People magazine picture shoot many years ago. Now that picture is one of the most well-known ones of her, sitting by a hotel pool and gazing at her new Oscar. Thoughts wandering. They were excited and hopeful when they first met. She left Hollywood for England to get away from the chaos there. They wanted less noise, but work still got in the way when they weren't in Los Angeles. Later, O'Neill said he had trouble balancing work and home life. They were married for 5 years before they got a divorce. They had a kid named Liam while they were together. Dunaway claimed for years that Liam was her real child. The rumors that he had been adopted were never brought up by her. Then, in 2003, O'Neill proved what many people already thought. Liam was taken in. The news made a stir in the media. Dunaway said she had kept it secret because of the demands and pressures of Hollywood. She said that being a mother was one of the best things in her life, a part that meant more to her than any movie she had ever been in. Liam has always had nice things to say about his mother and has been seen with her at public events. Dunaway had some hard times in her life. She was known for years to be hard to work with on set. Throughout her career, stories about her tantrums and mood swings stuck around. She was later told she had bipolar illness. The news made things clear. Over the course of decades, she had been struggling with feelings she didn't fully understand. Highs that made you feel like you could do anything, lows that drained her. She said that her illness made it hard for her to have personal and work relationships, but it also made her perform better. For parts like Diana Christensen in Network, she used those strong feelings. But you know what? We had a good time. It was great to see him again and do this with him. That's fine. In the past few years, she has been very open about her mental health problems in order to help other people who are going through the same things. Getting drunk was another problem. Her father had struggled with drinking, and she was starting to do the same things. Being drunk was first a way to relax. Over time, it turned into a trouble. A weakness of hers was gin martinis. They helped her when she was stressed or feeling alone. She finally understood that she needed help. Along the way to getting sober, she joined Alcoholics Anonymous. She now believes that her healing gave her a second chance and helped her fix her relationships, especially with her son. In Hollywood, Faye Dunaway never went in a straight line. She took time off from acting more than once, sometimes to focus on her personal life and other times to think about her work. After the huge fire in 1974, she took some time off to focus on her marriage to singer Peter Wolf. She always found a way back though, no matter how many times she left. Each return didn't feel like a comeback, as much as it did like a new part of a career that wouldn't end. In 1987's Barfly, she gave one of her most powerful performances. This was a different side of Dunaway than the glamorous part she had played before. As Wanda Wilcox, a woman lost in the circle of alcoholism who lived in dive bars and held on to any bits of love she could find, she played the part. Henry Chinesky was played by Mickey Rourke, a barely disguised version of the author Charles Bukowski, whose work the movie was based on. Dunaway and Rourke worked together to make something raw and disturbing. But even though their characters were bad, they were closely connected and stuck in a world of cheap alcohol and bad choices. Dunaway changed everything about herself for the part. She left behind any sign of her Hollywood glam, making Wanda seem real in a way that not many actresses could. Some people paid attention. Pauline Kael told her she did a great job because she didn't go over the top with the drama in her act. Roger Ebert thought it was a big deal for her career and a chance for her to show she could be brave and push herself. The movie didn't make a lot of money, but some people really liked it. It was even in the running for the Palme d'Or at Cannes. Dunaway thought of Barfly as more than just another part. It helped her remember why she loved playing in the first place. In the end, she said it was one of her favorites. In The Handmaid's Tale, a movie based on Margaret Atwood's dystopian book, she played a very different part in 1990. She played Fred Waterford's wife, Serena Joy, who was married to Robert Duvall. In this world, women had lost all of their rights and were made to play strict roles by a totalitarian government. Serena Joy was strong, but she was still stuck in a system that made her do things. Dunaway played the part as cold and calculating, but she also gave hints of something more profound. She seemed strict, but she was actually angry and frustrated. A woman who used to believe in the new society's ideas, but now feels trapped by them. The scenes she had with Offred, played by Natasha Richardson, were tense. It looked like there was something hidden behind every look and word. The movie itself had trouble. It made only $5 million at the box office, a lot less than the $13 million it cost to make. A lot of reviewers thought it didn't fully show how deep Atwood's book was. Some people said it was because the director chose to make it more of a thriller instead of focusing on its social topics. That being said, Dunaway's acting stood out even though the adaptation was flawed. Serena Joy became more than just a bad guy because of the layers she added to her. Through 1993, she became well-known on TV. In that same year, she had a starring role in an episode of Columbo called It's All in the Game. This wasn't like other Columbo mysteries. John Falk, who played the famous detective, wrote the story himself. He was interested in trying something new. What would happen if Columbo felt a strong connection to a suspect? Dunaway played Lauren Staton, a rich lady who was suspected of murder. She added something new to the show from the very first moment she showed up. Lauren wasn't just another thief that Columbo had to figure out. She was lovely, very smart, and maybe even risky. They had great energy in scenes together. It was the first time that the detective seemed a little off, like he was playing a game that wasn't just about solving a case. She got an Emmy for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series for the role. Some reviewers liked how the episode took chances and showed a different side of Columbo. After years, it's still one of the most famous episodes of the show. Then there was Gia, 1998, an HBO movie about the rise and fall of Gia Karangi, a beauty. Angelina Jolie played the lead, but Faye Dunaway played Wilhelmina Cooper, the modeling agent who found Gia and tried to help her get ahead in the tough fashion business. Wilhelmina wasn't the most interesting person in the movie, but Dunaway let people know she was there. She played her as a teacher and a rock in Gia's crazy life. Wilhelmina was one of the few people who really cared when everything else was going crazy. Reviewers liked how Dunaway gave the movie a sense of calm power. She won a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor for her role. She was famous in Hollywood because of Faye talent, but she was also famous in real life because of how fiery she was. On the set of Chinatown in 1974, she and director Roman Polanski got into one of the most violent fights in movie history. Their friendship at work was terrible from the start. Polanski was strict and demanding. It was impossible to get Dunaway to give in. They got into one of their worst fights over a small thing. One piece of Dunaway's hair kept falling into her face during a close-up. Polanski didn't stop the scene to fix it. Instead, he went over and ripped it right off her head. Dunaway was very angry. She walked off the set in a rage. Polanski later said that her response was crazy. She said he was mean. Things got worse. Dunaway had to spend hours sitting in a hot car for one scene, while they kept filming the same take. She asked to go to the toilet at one point. Polanski said no. He was not going to win Dunaway. He yelled, "You cunt, that's piss," as she peed in a cup and threw it in his face. The group was stunned and kept quiet. One of the most shocking things to ever happen in Hollywood. Nick Nicholson, who worked with Faye Dunaway, saw it all. He admired her skill, but he had problems with her on set. After they worked together, he called her the Dreaded Dunaway. It was both a joke and a warning. Nicholson slapped Dunaway's character several times in one of their most intense scenes. At first, they pretended to hit each other. Dunaway claimed that they were real. Nicholson thought for a moment and then agreed. He hit her many times until the take was just right. It turned out to be one of the most powerful parts of the movie. The movie Chinatown was great, but the damage was already done. They never worked together again after that. For decades, people knew her for being hard to get along with. She tried to get back on Broadway in 2019 with Tea at 5, a one-woman show about Katharine Hepburn. Her big return to the stage was meant to go well, but it didn't. Crew members said she yelled at them, hit people, and even threw things at them, like hairpins and mirrors. She made strange requests, like telling everyone they couldn't wear white because it was distracting her. The show was called off without warning on July 10th, right before the curtain. After a few days, Dunaway was fired. With a different actor, the show went on with its plans. This had happened to her before. In 1994, she was taken off of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Sunset Boulevard for the same reason. Also, Faye Dunaway came back to the big screen in 2017 after being away from films for 8 years. She had parts in films like Inconceivable, The Case for Christ, and The By Man, which showed that she could still connect with people in any field. Each movie was different, which showed how flexible she was and let Hollywood know she wasn't done yet. She played Donna in the movie Inconceivable, who was in the middle of a tense psychological adventure. Nicolas Cage and Gina Gershon were among the actors in the movie, which also had some new names. It got mixed reviews, but Dunaway's appearance made it more important. In a supporting part or not, she knew how to make a difference. It was directed by Jonathan Baker and came out on June 30th, 2017. It was one of her few drama projects which made it stand out. With The Case for Christ, a drama based on the real story of reporter Lee Strobel, she went in a different direction. Dunaway played Dr. Roberta Waters, a figure who helps the main character think about what he believes. People really liked the movie and said it made them think about important things. Even though Dunaway only had a small part, she made every scene smarter and stronger. Then there was the horror movie The By Man, in which she played the creepy and mysterious Widow Redmond. But she played the part with the same passion as always. Some people didn't like the movie, but her acting stood out. another thing that helped her remember that she could own any part. Years later, in 2024, her story was told in an HBO documentary called Faye, which was directed by Laurent Boussereau and had its world premiere in the Classic section of the festival. Many people liked how honest it was about her life and work. It wasn't just a party to honor her work. It was a close look at the problems she was having behind the scenes. There were honest interviews, old footage, and thoughts from stars like Sharon Stone and Mickey Rourke in the documentary. It talked about her struggles with mental health, including being diagnosed with bipolar illness later in life. It also talked about the problems she faced as a woman in Hollywood, where actors who were strong and spoke their minds were often called difficult. I had many options, but I chose to deal with the problems that came up. You're right, it's the options. Network is what you need to pick. Faye put them in context and showed how the business world had viewed her differently than her male co-workers. As the release date of the documentary got closer, she talked about her problems with alcoholism, the stress of being famous, and a never-ending battle to stay relevant in a field that changes so quickly. People had thought of her for years as a strong and sometimes unstable person. She was now telling her own story,